This lesson is over subtraction of equations, or subtraction equations in general. So when we talked yesterday about a addition equation, today we're looking at subtraction. So if we used inverse operations to get rid of addition, and the inverse operation of addition was subtraction, then we're going to use inverse operations to get rid of subtraction as well. And the inverse operation of subtraction is an addition. So initially, we're going to look at this model, which again, please remember that I really prefer you not to use the minus. Instead, I would prefer you write it as negatives, or you model it as negatives like that. And I would prefer that you use a balanced scale, but this will still serve our purpose for now. So to model this equation, we can either write it as, get my pen. Sorry, it's being a little slow on me. There we go. So this is x, and you can either write minus 2, which was originally shown up there, or you can write plus negative 2. I'm really okay with either one. And that should equal a positive 5, because there are positive 5 counters there. So if we were going to model these, we would take an x, which is a cup, and this is the same thing as take away a positive is add a negative. So we are going to add the opposite here, which means when we model it, we're going to put 2 negatives there. But on the other side of our balance scale, we're going to put 3 positives. Same thing over here. We're going to take our cup, and then again, this is adding the opposite, which is a negative. So I'm going to take 8 of those. It's a lot of dragon. All right. And then I'm going to draw my balance scale. And on the other side of that balance scale, I'm going to put positive 4. All right. So that's the modeling process. We just did that. So now we're going to take a look at the math that's actually involved. Okay, so if you think of this as x plus a negative 2 equals 3, it's the same thing. How do you make 0 with a negative 2? Well, a positive 2 cancels out a negative 2, makes 0. So you have to do that to the other side, which means that x is equal to 5. Now, since we know this equation is the exact same as this equation, what that really means is that we should understand that this means add a negative. So we're actually adding a positive to get rid of it. But sometimes it's a lot easier for people to think about this is when it's subtracting a number, use the inverse operation of adding a number to get rid of it. It's just a little bit simpler to look at because you don't have as much going on up here. But an add 2 and a subtract 2 still does make 0, and you still get 5 as your answer. So really you're going to see me using the inverse operations instead of the add the opposite thing, but you're more than welcome to use either. So how do I get rid of a subtract 8? With an add 8. These go away. I have an x left over on this side of the equation and a 12 left over on that side. This one's a little bit trickier because we actually do have 2 numbers here. We have a minus 13 and a plus 5. Now remember, a subtract 13 is the same thing as adding a negative. So all we have to do is take that negative 13 and that positive 5, and that's going to give us minus 8, or negative 8. So how do I get rid of the subtract? With an add. So really kind of the way I always talk about this is I use the subtract 8 pretty much interchangeably with the negative 8. So this is 20 and 8, which makes 28. The only difference here is that our x is on the other side. We still need to isolate the x. So how do I get rid of subtract 5? With an add 5. This goes away. I have an x left over here. Now remember, you should treat these like integers. This is a negative 7 and a positive 5, which means you have negative 2 left over. It's always a good idea to take your answer and plug it back in to make sure it works. Okay? Rational numbers? Sure, they work the same exact way. How do I get rid of a minus 2.68? With an add 2.68. The only difference with these is sometimes you might have to show a little bit of math over on the side. So that goes away and I have an x equal to 8 and 2 is 10. So that's going to carry a 1, which makes the next column 7 and then 6. Oops, I hit the wrong button. So that's all the examples we have today. Please complete the assignment in your math booklet.